So we're back at the cafe, and I'm really glad we're doing this today.
Oh, me too. Absolutely.
Because today we're talking about a serenity robber that, well, I think almost all of us struggle with, worry.
Oh, yeah. The thief that just never rests.
Right. And I mean, I have to start by being totally honest about something that tried to steal my peace just this morning.
Oh, let's hear it.
Literally before I even got out of bed, I grabbed my phone, which, is always a bad idea. And I had this message from someone I really respect.
Okay, I already know where this is going.
Just 5 words on the screen. Call me when you have a minute.
Oh, man. No context at all.
Zero context, no punctuation, no clue if it's good news, bad news, a problem. And I'm telling you, within maybe 30 seconds, my heart rate spiked. My chest tightened up.
Yeah, your brain just instantly goes to the worst case scenario.
Exactly. I sat there and mentally lived through like 3 completely different catastrophic scenarios that had not actually happened. I hadn't even moved an inch from my bed, but my peace of mind was completely hijacked by an imaginary future.
That is the perfect place to start, really, because every single person listening right now knows exactly what that visceral reaction feels like.
Yeah.
That is the exact moment the robber breaks in. Because worry is essentially a down payment on a problem that might never actually arrive.
Oh, wow. A down payment.
Yeah. We're basically purchasing our own suffering in advance. We have this false belief that if we just turn a potential disaster over and over in our minds enough times, we're somehow preparing for it or preventing it.
Right, like we're doing the work.
Exactly. But in reality, we're just surrendering our present serenity to a future reality that is entirely fabricated. It's just made up.
I heard someone say once that worry is like a rocking chair. Like, it gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere.
Oh, that's a classic. And it's so true.
But, in recovery, I've realized it's actually worse than that. It's a robber that keeps our hands so full of what-ifs that we just don't have any room to catch the grace God is giving us for right now.
That's exactly why the Serenity Prayer is so vital for us. It's our way of opening our hands.
Yeah.
Because when we admit we can't change tomorrow, we're finally free to focus on what God is doing in our lives today. Worry says, I have to figure this out. But Principle 1 says, I'm not God, and I can trust the one who is.
Absolutely.
If you're feeling paralyzed by the tomorrow, it's time to trade that worry for the peace only Jesus can provide.
Okay, so I hear what you were saying about opening our hands and trusting God, but I want to push back on this right away, just so we can be completely real with each other.
Sure, go for it.
Because if I'm sitting here, right, and my bank account is severely overdrawn, and I know I have a major utility bill coming due on Friday.
Right. A real, tangible problem.
Yes. Telling me that my anxiety is just a failure to trust God feels, well, a bit like a slap in the face.
I can totally see that.
Like, how is that not just toxic positivity dressed up in religious language?
Oh.
Are we really saying that taking our very real problems seriously is somehow a spiritual failure?
No, not at all. And that is exactly the friction we have to address first. Because taking a problem seriously and worrying about a problem are 2 entirely different mechanisms.
Okay, unpack that. Explain that difference for me.
Well, acknowledging reality is never a spiritual failure. Actually, rigorous honesty is the absolute bedrock of our recovery. The lesson draws a sharp line at what we do with that reality.
Instead of the reaction.
Right. The toxic positivity you mentioned would be ignoring the overdrawn bank account entirely, slapping a smile on your face, and declaring that everything is fine.
Which is just denial.
Exactly. The spiritual failure we're talking about here, that trust gap, is when you look at the overdrawn account and decide that because the situation is dire, you must assume ultimate control over the universe to fix it.
So it is the underlying belief driving the action.
Yes.
The lesson ties this directly back to Principle 1, admitting that we are powerless and that our lives have become unmanageable. When we fret, we are silently operating under the assumption that our fretting is a form of management.
Precisely. All worrying, when you trace it all the way down to its deepest root, is a form of failing to trust God.
And that is a really uncomfortable truth to face.
It is, because we are wired to crave predictability and safety. When we face uncertainty, whether it's financial strain, a looming medical test, a struggling marriage, our immediate human reaction is to try and establish control over the outcome.
But we can't.
Right. We cannot literally reach into the future and force the outcome we want. So we try to mentally control it through worry.
Yeah. We run the scenarios, we rehearse the arguments we plan to have.
We calculate budgets for disasters that haven't even struck yet. And we do this because fretting feels like work. It mimics the sensation of problem solving.
Wow. Yeah, it really does.
The lie of worry is that if you suffer enough beforehand, you are somehow inoculating yourself against the pain of the actual event.
But it produces absolutely no fruit. Like, think about a farmer.
Oh yeah, the farmer's a great way to look at it.
A farmer has a very clear set of responsibilities, right? He can plow the field, he can plant the seed, he can pull the weeds. That is his actionable work.
The stuff he can actually put his hands on.
Right. But the farmer cannot command the rain. He cannot dictate the amount of sunlight.
No, he can't.
So if the farmer spends his nights pacing the floor, just agonizing over whether the clouds will open up, he isn't watering his crops. He is just destroying his own peace.
Exactly.
The act of pacing doesn't coax a single drop of water from the sky. And our worry is that pacing. We are trying to do the work that belongs to the sky, and in the process, we are neglecting the ground right beneath our feet.
That perfectly illustrates the difference between what the lesson calls fretting versus focusing.
Fretting versus focusing.
Yeah. Fretting is a futile expenditure of energy on the unchangeable rain. Focusing is an empowering investment of energy into the changeable soil.
I love that.
And the mental toll of confusing those two things is just devastating. When you are carrying tomorrow's burdens today, you are carrying a load you are never designed to bear.
It's too much weight.
It is. Think about a period in your life where worry was your primary mode of operating. What did that actually feel like?
Oh, hollowed out. Completely depleted.
Yeah.
It drains your spiritual reserves and your emotional capacity until you are just running on fumes.
You have nothing left to give.
Exactly. You find that you have zero patience for the people standing right in front of you, your family, your friends, your coworkers, because 100% of your internal energy is being exported to a tomorrow that doesn't even exist yet.
It makes you incredibly brittle.
Yes. Brittle is the perfect word. The smallest inconvenience today makes you snap simply because the invisible weight of tomorrow is already crushing you.
And that invisible weight is why it is so crucial to clearly delineate between planning and worry. You asked earlier where the line is between responsible planning and a toxic failure to trust God.
Right, because we still have to pay the bills.
We do. The Word of God doesn't call us to be careless. We are instructed to be wise stewards. But the difference between planning and worrying is found in the underlying motivation and the resulting destination.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Planning is characterized by a peaceful preparation. You gather the facts, you make a sound decision based on wisdom, you take the necessary steps, and then, here's the key, you leave the outcome in God's hands.
There is a quiet confidence in planning.
Yes. Worry, on the other hand, is driven by fear, not wisdom. When you are worrying, you never arrive at a place of rest. You make a plan, but then you immediately doubt it.
Oh, I do that all the time. Contingency plans for my contingency plans.
Right. Because planning frees your mind to return to the present, but worry traps your mind in a perpetual frantic loop of future dread.
So planning basically has a definitive period at the end of the sentence. I have set aside this money for the electric bill. Period. Worry just has a series of trailing, endless commas. I set aside the money, but what if the rates go up? And what if the furnace breaks? And what if we lose the house? It just spirals into infinity.
It really does. And recognizing that spiral is the first step in acknowledging that we've crossed the line. We've moved from trusting God's provision to relying on our own frantic attempts to manage circumstances outside our control.
And when we realize we're doing that, we have to look at what the Word of God actually commands regarding our timeline.
Yes, and this is a massive recalibration of how we are supposed to orient our lives.
It really is. The instruction is surprisingly narrow. It is entirely focused on living strictly in the present.
It's brought into really sharp focus in Matthew chapter 6, verse 34. It says, "Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own."
Each day has enough trouble of its own. I have to admit, that is not exactly a culturally popular or uplifting sentiment, is it?
No, not at all.
We live in a society that is obsessed with, like, visualizing a flawless future, manifesting perfect outcomes, and permanently eliminating all trouble.
Right, good vibes only.
Exactly. But Jesus doesn't offer that. He gives this incredibly grounded, honest assessment of human life. He isn't promising that today will be easy or that if you just have enough faith, all your trouble will vanish.
He acknowledges that today has real challenges.
Real challenges, real difficulties, and real recovery work that requires your absolute full attention right now. The command is not to pretend the trouble doesn't exist.
Right.
The command is to refuse to import tomorrow's trouble into today.
It is the profound boundary line. And in the context of our recovery journey, Staying within that boundary is paramount.
Mm.
We talk often about how recovery is completely impossible in the past, and it is impossible in the future.
It can only happen in the right now.
Yes, you cannot make an amend tomorrow. You can have every intention of making an amend, you can plan what you will say, but the actual physical act of healing a relationship can only happen in the present moment.
That's so true.
You cannot stay sober yesterday. You
Okay.
cannot guarantee your sobriety tomorrow. You can only choose to work your recovery right now. Worry is the thief that constantly tries to pull you out of the right now and force you to live in the someday.
And the someday is a tremendously dangerous place to live.
It is. Why do you think that is?
Because it is a place where grace has not yet been applied.
Oh, that's good.
I think this gets to the absolute core of why worry feels so crushing. When I am facing a difficult situation today, a real tangible problem sitting right in front of me, I consistently find that God provides the exact amount of strength, patience, and clarity I need to navigate it.
The grace is sufficient for the reality of the present moment.
Yes. But when my mind starts projecting into a disaster that might happen next Tuesday, I feel completely overwhelmed and totally powerless.
You feel powerless because you are operating entirely on your own power. God provides today's strength for today's trouble. He does not provide today's strength for tomorrow's imagined disasters. When you are suffering over a hypothetical future, you are stepping out from under the covering of His grace, because His grace is stationed firmly in the reality of today.
That makes so much sense.
You're trying to fight a battle in the future using the limited resources of today. So of course you feel defeated. You were never meant to fight there.
Okay, but let me play the skeptic again for a moment.
Bring it on.
What if tomorrow's trouble requires action today? Like, if I know a massive storm is coming tomorrow, I don't just sit on my porch today talking about daily grace, right?
Right.
I board up the windows. So how do we reconcile taking action today for a future event without letting our minds become trapped in the someday?
Well, boarding up the windows is the exact definition of planning with a period at the end of the sentence.
Okay, I see.
You see the forecast, you recognize the reality, you buy the wood, you hammer the nails, and you go back inside and make dinner. You have done the actionable work required today to prepare for tomorrow.
The physical action.
Right. Worry is what happens when you board up the windows, sit down for dinner, and spend the entire meal agonizing over whether the nails are strong enough, whether the wood will hold, whether the roof will blow off, and whether you'll lose everything you own.
So boarding the windows is an action taken in the present.
Yes.
Worrying about the strength of the wood is a mental escape into a future you cannot control.
That's exactly it.
That distinction is incredibly helpful. The physical action happens in the present, but the mental agonizing is an unauthorized trip to the future.
An unauthorized trip. I like that.
And there is a secondary tragic consequence to taking that unauthorized trip. When we project our minds into the future, agonizing over what might be, it leaves today completely unguarded.
Yes, it does.
When your mind is living in tomorrow, you are entirely absent from the present. You miss the blessings right in front of you.
You miss the small moments.
A conversation with a friend, the beauty of the morning. You are physically taking up space in a room, but mentally you are miles away.
And even more critically for those of us on this journey, you miss the necessary recovery work standing in front of you today.
Oh, that's huge.
If God is trying to teach you something profound about patience or surrender or forgiveness today, but your mind is consumed with a frantic fear about a conversation happening next month,
Yeah.
you completely miss the lesson.
Because you aren't really there.
Right. The trouble of today is often the exact crucible God is using to forge your character.
No.
Worry steals the grace that today's trouble was specifically designed to provide.
It robs us of the very ground we are standing on.
It does.
So knowing this, knowing that staying in the present day is literally a matter of spiritual survival, we have to talk about how we actually do this.
Yes, the practical part.
Because just knowing we shouldn't worry doesn't automatically stop the worry.
If only it were that easy.
Right. We need practical ways to anchor ourselves. We need a tactical intervention when we feel our minds being dragged away. And the lesson points us directly toward the primary tool we use to pull a wandering mind back to the right now.
The Serenity Prayer.
Yes. It instructs us to keep a copy of the Serenity Prayer in our pocket, and more importantly, in our heart.
You know, we recite the Serenity Prayer at the beginning of every single meeting. It is so woven into the fabric of our community that sometimes the words can wash right over us without even registering.
Like an opening ceremony.
Exactly. We treat it like a formality. But the lesson asks us to look at it as a tactical, precision tool to defeat anxiety. Keeping a copy in your pocket speaks to the necessity of a physical, tangible grounding technique.
Like touching something real.
Right. When the wave of panic first hits, like when you get that vague message or open that concerning letter, your thoughts accelerate incredibly fast. Having a physical piece of paper or a coin with the prayer on it gives you a physical action to take.
Reaching into your pocket?
Yes. Touching it serves as a physical circuit breaker for your racing mind. It interrupts the spiral and brings your awareness back to your physical environment in the present moment.
It brings you out of the abstract future and back to the tactile present. But the physical reminder is only meant to point us to the spiritual reality. The lesson says we must keep it in our heart, meaning it must become an internalized spiritual reflex.
It has to become the default language of our spirit when we face the unknown.
Right. And to really utilize it as a weapon against worry, we can't just rattle off the whole thing in one breath. We have to slow down and dissect the individual clauses.
Yeah.
Because each part is a direct counterattack on a specific facet of anxiety.
Let's do that. It begins with the hardest part, really.
Yeah.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
That is the foundational step.
It is. Before we can take any action, we have to accurately identify the unchangeable elements of our situation and actively ask for the serenity, the peace, to accept them.
Let's talk about that word accept, because I think it causes a lot of friction.
Oh, massive friction.
Acceptance does not mean you approve of something. It doesn't mean you endorse it, and it certainly doesn't mean you are happy about it. Acceptance is simply the act of acknowledging reality as it is, rather than fighting for reality to be what you wish it was.
Well said.
So, when we talk about the unchangeable things that fuel our worry, what are we really talking about? We are talking about the weather. We are talking about the past things we have already done, choices we have already made, or harm that has already been done to us. We're talking about future outcomes that are entirely beyond our reach. But perhaps most significantly, especially in recovery, we are talking about other people.
Oh, yeah. Other people are the single largest source of our attempts at control.
Definitely.
We cannot change other people. We cannot control their actions, their reactions, their opinions of us, their choices, or their own recovery journeys.
As much as we try.
Right. So much of our anxiety is tied up in trying to manage the unmanageable behavior of spouses, children, bosses, or friends. We believe that if we just say the right thing, or worry enough, or manipulate the environment perfectly, we can force them to change.
But asking God for the serenity to accept that we cannot change another human being is a massive release of a burden we were never designed to carry.
It is a profound release, but I will say, it is also a grieving process.
Oh, absolutely.
Surrendering the illusion that we can fix someone else is painful. But once we release the unchangeable, the prayer immediately shifts our focus to where our energy actually belongs. The second clause asks for the courage to change the things I can.
And this is where the actual action of recovery takes place.
Yes, the focus moves entirely off of the other person, off of the past, off of the future, and lands squarely on us right now.
So what can we actually change? We can change our own attitudes. We can change our daily habits. We can change our immediate reaction to the situations we face.
We can choose to work our recovery steps today.
Right. We can choose to make a phone call to a sponsor instead of isolating in our fear. We can choose to be honest about our feelings. These are the changeable things.
They are. But I want to highlight the specific word used in the prayer. It asks for courage to change them. It does not ask for the motivation to change them. It doesn't ask for the desire or for the process to be easy or comfortable. It asks for courage.
So why courage? Why is that the specific requirement?
Because changing ourselves, facing our own character defects, making amends, and doing the hard work of daily recovery is incredibly daunting.
It really is.
It requires bravery to look at your own flaws instead of constantly pointing at someone else's. And here is where worry plays a very deceptive trick on us.
What do you mean?
Worry often serves as a deliberate distraction from this necessary, courageous work.
Oh, wow.
It is so much easier to fret about a hypothetical future disaster or to agonize over a family member's poor choices than it is to have the courage to look at my own resentments, my own dishonesty, and take responsibility for my own actions today.
So worry is a smokescreen.
It's a smokescreen we use to hide from our own need for change.
I have never thought about worry as a smokescreen, but that is devastatingly accurate. It feels noble, to worry about someone else, but it actually excuses us from doing our own work. And that dynamic leads perfectly to the final clause, which is really the absolute linchpin of the entire prayer, and the wisdom to know the difference.
The wisdom to know the difference.
Wisdom to separate the unchangeable from the changeable. This is the absolute key to mental wellness. All the friction, all the anxiety, the hollowing out that we discussed earlier, all of that is generated when we confuse what we can change with what we cannot change.
The friction happens when the categories are blurred. So
Okay.
how does that confusion usually manifest in your own experience?
Oh, I call it the backward serenity prayer.
The backward serenity prayer. I like that.
Yeah, when I am operating out of fear instead of trust, I get the entire thing flipped. I
Wow.
aggressively try to change the things I cannot change. I try
Oh.
to force outcomes. I try to manipulate the people around me into doing what I want them to do. I try to guarantee the future by over-planning every possible scenario.
And it completely drains you?
Yes, and at the exact same time, while I am burning myself out fighting the unchangeable, I passively accept the things I actually have the courage to change. Oh man. I accept my own destructive habits. I accept my bad attitude. I accept my tendency to isolate, telling myself, well, that's just the way I am. I can't help it.
You're putting your energy in the wrong place entirely.
Totally. I spend all my energy banging my head against a brick wall trying to move it while completely ignoring the open door right beside me. I have no energy left to address the changeable because I have wasted it all fighting the unchangeable.
The backward serenity prayer is a brilliant illustration of how anxiety operates mechanically. When we are in that inverted state, we are in constant bruising conflict with reality.
We really are.
The wisdom to know the difference is the spiritual discernment that aligns us back with the truth of how the world actually works. It is the clarity that allows us to look at a chaotic, terrifying situation and meticulously categorize it.
Put things in the right buckets.
Right. You say, this part right here, the test results from the doctor, the ultimate decision my boss makes about the layoffs, the way my spouse reacted yesterday. This strictly goes into the cannot change bucket. I must hand this over to God and ask for the serenity to accept reality.
But then you have the other bucket.
Exactly. This part over here, my reaction to the waiting, my honesty in my relationships today, my decision to attend a meeting tonight, this goes into the can change bucket. I must ask God for the courage to act on this today.
And when we sort our lives with that level of wisdom, the overwhelming, deafening noise of worry begins to quiet down. We are no longer trying to do God's job. We are simply focusing on our own.
But to get that wisdom, to accurately sort our circumstances into those two buckets, we have to be willing to take a fearless look at what is actually causing the noise.
We have to shine a harsh light directly on the anxiety itself.
Yes. And this brings us to a very practical, very challenging part of the lesson. It is a moment of rigorous personal inventory.
The tough questions.
Right. The lesson turns directly to the listener and asks two very direct, piercing questions. What are you worrying about? Why?
It sounds so rudimentary, almost too simple.
It really does. But the reality is, when we are caught in a violent cycle of worry, we rarely stop to actually define what is chasing us. We just feel the dread.
The physical symptoms.
Yeah, we feel the heavy weight pressing down on our chest. We feel the racing, fragmented thoughts. But if I stopped someone in the middle of a panic and asked, name exactly what you're afraid of right now in one clear sentence, it is often surprisingly difficult for them to articulate it.
That is so true. We just live with a vague, unnamed dread.
And vague, unnamed dread is always more powerful and terrifying than a specific, defined fear.
Why is that? Why is an unnamed fear so much more powerful?
Because when a fear is unnamed, it has no boundaries. It lacks shape. It can be as large and as destructive as your imagination allows it to be.
It just grows.
Right. It lives in the dark corners of your mind, and in the dark, every shadow looks like a monster. The act of clearly defining and naming your worry, saying it out loud to another human being, or writing it down clearly in black and white on a piece of paper, is like turning on the overhead light in that dark room.
Oh, I love that, turning on the light.
It completely strips away the overwhelming, boundless power of the fear. It forces the fear to take a concrete, finite shape.
So instead of just a floating sense of impending doom, you force it into a sentence.
Exactly. You write down, I am not just vaguely afraid of the future. I am specifically worrying that my employer will eliminate my department next month, and I will not have enough money to pay my mortgage.
Which is heavy, but it's clear.
Right. When you name it, it is still a difficult, sobering circumstance. We aren't pretending it isn't hard. But it is no longer an infinite, shape-shifting monster. It is a specific problem.
And a specific problem can be addressed with the Serenity Prayer.
Precisely. You can look at that exact sentence and ask for the wisdom to know the difference. I cannot change corporate restructuring. I can change my resume today. I can change my spending habits today.
Turning on the light. That makes so much sense. But the lesson doesn't just stop at asking, what are you worrying about? It follows it up with a second, much harder question.
Why?
Why? And this guides us to look beneath the surface of the named worry, because often the circumstance we are fretting over, the what, is just the symptom. The root, the why, is buried much deeper.
Digging for the why is the heavy lifting of the recovery process.
That really is.
It is peeling back the layers of our own hearts. If I am worrying obsessively about a presentation at work, the what is the presentation. But if I ask myself why I am so consumed by it, I might discover that the worry is actually rooted in a deep foundational fear of rejection.
So it's not even about the slides or the speech.
No, I am terrified that if the presentation fails, I will be seen as incompetent and I will lose the approval of my peers. The presentation isn't the real issue. My desperate need for human approval is the issue.
Or maybe the why is rooted in a fear of lack or a fear of abandonment. Like, if I dig down beneath my anxiety about a relationship, I might find that I simply do not trust that God will provide for my emotional needs.
Right.
So I feel like I must secure my own emotional survival by perfectly managing the other person. Identifying the why is so crucial because it shows us exactly where our trust in God is fractured.
It pinpoints the exact location of the trust gap.
Yes, it shows us the specific wound where we need to invite him in for healing.
But as we talk about naming our fears and finding these deep root causes, there is a very real pushback that we must address right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Someone listening right now might be thinking, okay, I understand naming the fear and looking for the root if it is just a vague insecurity about a work presentation. But what if the thing I am worrying about is genuinely terrifying?
A real crisis.
Right. What is a devastating health diagnosis I just received? What is a spouse who packed their bags and walked out the door this morning?
Yeah.
What if it is a complete, undeniable financial collapse? Naming it doesn't make it any less real, and it certainly doesn't make it any less painful.
Right.
How do we navigate that? Because we cannot sit here and minimize the very real, agonizing suffering that people in our community are walking through right now.
That is the most important pushback of this entire conversation, and it is the reality of living in a broken world. Sometimes the things we fear actually do happen, the storms actually hit.
They do.
Naming a real, terrifying fear does not magically fix the circumstance. Writing down, I have a severe illness or I am facing foreclosure, does not cure the illness or replenish the bank account.
No, it doesn't.
But here is the critical shift. Naming a terrifying reality clarifies exactly what must be handed over to God's care versus what requires our immediate, courageous action today.
When the fear is monumental, the illusion of control becomes even more tempting, doesn't it? And the resulting worry is even more paralyzing. We want to fight the illness by worrying about it. We want to fight the foreclosure by pacing the floor.
Exactly. We revert right back to fretting. By naming the terrifying reality out loud, we are forced to confront our absolute powerlessness over the ultimate outcome.
We have to face it.
We are forced to look at the diagnosis and say, God, the outcome of this disease is entirely in the cannot change bucket. I am completely powerless over it. But in that same breath, it highlights the can change bucket.
Right. I cannot change the diagnosis, but I can choose to show up for my treatment today.
I can choose to be rigorously honest with my family about my fear today. I can choose to seek comfort in the Word of God today. Naming the real fear doesn't remove the trial, but it gives us the solid footing to walk through it in the present moment with God, rather than being crushed by the imagined future of it.
It brings us back to the reality of the present, where God's grace is stationed and waiting. And once the fear is named, categorized, and the deep why is exposed, we are brought to a profound realization. We realize that human willpower is simply not enough to defeat this robber. Positive thinking is vastly insufficient.
It just isn't enough.
When you are facing down a deep-seated anxiety or a truly terrifying life circumstance, you need more than a clever coping mechanism. You need more than just repeating upbeat mantras to yourself in the mirror.
Oh, definitely.
Secular approaches and behavioral tricks might offer a temporary distraction, but they do not heal the fractured root of trust. True peace, the kind of serenity that can withstand the actual storms of life, requires a savior. It requires an outside intervention.
It does, and that is where the rubber meets the road in our specific recovery journey. The lesson makes it very clear that the ultimate solution to worry is not found in a technique. It is found in a relationship.
A relationship.
Yes. It says that by faithfully working this recovery journey and completing the principles, we can find that deep trust in that relationship with the one and only higher power, Jesus Christ. This is the difference between white knuckling our way through anxiety and actually finding lasting freedom.
Working the principles, showing up to these meetings, doing the rigorous inventory, making the painful amends, all of this builds a bridge out of isolation.
And isolation is where worry thrives.
Absolutely. When we are entirely alone in our own heads, our fears echo, multiply, and amplify. The recovery process forces us into community, into radical honesty, and ultimately into a much deeper reliance on Christ. We stop trying to play the director of the universe and start learning how to be held by the one who actually created it.
And the beautiful promise of the lesson is found right there at the end. It says, as we grow closer to him, we'll find that our anxiety begins to fade away.
That's a powerful promise.
It is. And notice, it doesn't say that the moment you believe you will instantly never feel a pang of worry again. It describes a gradual relational healing. It is a process of growing closer.
Think about how trust is built in any relationship. If you have a friend who has proven themselves over decades to be relentlessly faithful, incredibly capable, and deeply loving toward you, you do not spend your evenings worrying about whether they will have your back in a crisis.
No, you just know they
You
will.
trust them automatically because you know their character intimately. The same dynamic is true with God. As we work the principles, as we read the Word of God, as we experience His quiet faithfulness in the small daily troubles of today, our understanding of His character expands.
We really get to know him.
We begin to genuinely, deeply believe that He is good, that He is sovereign, and that He loves us. And as that trust deepens, the intimidating shadows of the future naturally begin to shrink. We stop trusting in our fragile, flawed ability to manage tomorrow, and we start resting securely in His proven ability to hold us today.
I love that image of the shadows shrinking as we get closer to him. It reminds me of a truth I have to force myself to remember daily. Peace is not the absence of trouble.
No, it's not.
If we wait for a perfectly smooth life with no trouble to finally feel peaceful, we will be waiting until we are in the grave. Peace is the presence of Jesus in the very midst of the trouble.
Amen to that.
When we stand close to the light, the shadows cast by our fears naturally become smaller. The closer we are to him, the more his peace displaces our panic. The circumstances might still be incredibly daunting, the future might still be entirely unknown, but the internal, frantic need to control it all starts to dissolve.
The need for control just melts away.
We find that we can sit in the rocking chair, acknowledge that it doesn't get us anywhere, and choose to stand up and walk into the present day instead.
That is the daily, grinding walk of recovery, and it requires immense grace for ourselves and for each other.
It really does.
Because trading worry for peace is not a one-time transaction you make at the beginning of your journey and then you are permanently fixed. It is not a box you check off. It is a daily, sometimes hour-by-hour, minute-by-minute choice of opening your hands.
Continual surrender.
It is an ongoing, lifelong practice of surrender. The Serenity robbers will always look for an open window. The vague messages will still come. The unexpected complications will still arise. The severe health scares will still happen. The intense temptation to leap into tomorrow and start fretting will always be there.
But we have the tools now.
We have the tools now. We have the community now. And most importantly, we have the relationship with Christ to ground us in the reality of today.
Before we close our time together today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over this week. Something that goes a little deeper than just asking what we are afraid of.
Let's hear it.
Think about this. What if the thing you are most terrified of losing tomorrow is actually the exact idol that is preventing your spiritual growth today?
Oh, wow. That's a hard question.
What if your worry isn't just a misfiring warning system, but a glaring spotlight pointing directly at what you have put ahead of God?
If you are consumed with fear about losing your status, your wealth, or another person's approval.
Exactly. Maybe the worry is revealing exactly where your trust is truly placed. Let that challenge you this week. Whenever you feel your fists, physically or emotionally, clenching around a future you cannot control, let that tension be your trigger.
Let it be a reminder.
Let it be the physical alarm bell that reminds you to pause, to breathe, and to whisper the Serenity Prayer. Open your hands, let go of the tomorrow you cannot manage, and make room to catch the grace that God is offering you for the trouble and the beauty of right now.
It is the only place we can truly live.
Yeah.
And you absolutely do not have to practice this alone. If you are tired of carrying the crushing weight of tomorrow, if the anxiety has left you feeling completely hollowed out, we want to warmly, genuinely invite you to come and experience this recovery journey in person.
Please do.
Come and walk this road with a community of people who understand exactly what it means to struggle with these serenity robbers. We would love to see you at Peters Creek Baptist Church in South Park, Pennsylvania. We gather every single Friday evening, and it is a place of incredible honesty, grace, and real healing.
We really do want to see you there. The doors are wide open for you. Let me give you the exact breakdown of how our Friday nights work so you know exactly what to expect when you walk in.
Good idea.
At 6:30 p.m., we kick things off with our large group worship. This is a dedicated time of teaching, hearing powerful testimonies, and focusing our hearts on the principles of recovery. Then, from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m., we break out into our gender-specific small groups.
That's where the real magic happens.
It is. This is where the real heart-to-heart, honest conversations happen. This is the place where you can safely say, here's what I'm worrying about and here is why, and be met with total understanding and support rather than judgment.
It's so safe.
And finally, from 8:30 to 9 p.m., we have the Crosstalk Cafe, where we just hang out, grab a cup of coffee, and build the vital relationships that sustain us through the rest of the week.
And we also have a very special announcement regarding our schedule for this week. On the final Friday of each month, we host a dinner before the evening begins. It is held strictly from 5:15 to 6 p.m.
The food is always amazing.
It really is a wonderful time to break bread together and connect on a personal level before the large group starts. This upcoming Friday, April 24th, 2026, is that final Friday, and we have a fantastic menu planned. We will be serving pulled pork, baked beans, coleslaw, cornbread, rolls, and desserts.
Oh, I can't wait for the cornbread.
It is going to be a great meal and a vital time of fellowship, so we highly encourage you to come early and join us for dinner.
Yes, definitely come early. If you have any questions at all, if you want more information about the specific groups we offer, or if you just need to reach out and make a connection before you show up, please do not hesitate to contact us. You can email Craig Amstone directly at craig.amstone@gmail.com. Or you can contact the church office at info@pcbc.elo church. We are here to help you get connected in any way we can.
And we know that not everyone listening right now is in the South Park area. If you are not local to us, but you know deep down that you need this kind of community to help you face your own serenity robbers, we strongly encourage you to find a Celebrate Recovery near you.
There are groups everywhere.
You can easily locate one by visiting crlocator.com and simply entering your zip code. The journey of recovery is happening in communities all over the world, and there is a chair waiting for you.
There absolutely is a chair waiting for you. Thank you so much for joining us at the cafe today. It has been an honest, difficult, but truly necessary conversation. We are praying for your serenity this week. We are praying that you find the courage to stay firmly in today and the wisdom to know the difference. We will see you next time as we continue our series. Until then, keep your hands open and remember to take it one day at a time. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, and God bless. Take it one day at a time.